Welcome to today's episode of Motivating Moments. I'm Pastor Steve, your host and guide for today's conversation, and I am so glad that you're here. Let me just start by saying that, hey guys, I know that we all face moments when moving forward just absolutely feels impossible. But you know, the interesting thing that I've learned over these years of leadership and also striving for goals and trying to move towards God's vision for my life is that it's these moments when moving forward feels the most impossible that we often find the greatest opportunity and potential for breakthrough. So today we're going to dive into what it means to persevere when quitting seems like the easier option. So before we jump in, I want to remind you to check out SteveEvans.online. And if you're looking for a speaker for your next event or you need leadership training for your team, maybe you want some exposure to a different voice to help you drive home some points for your team, whatever the case may be, I would love to partner with you. You can find all of the information there and booking forms, requests, and things there on SteveEvans.online. And again, I would love to partner with you in your journey leading your team. So also make sure to connect with us on social media. Just search Pastor Steve Evans. And if you prefer video, head on over to my YouTube channel where you can watch this episode and others as well. Hit subscribe and join our ever-growing community. Now, let's get into today's topic. Don't quit. You know, we're talking about this idea of persevering and not quitting, and I would share with you a personal story. I would share with you a personal story, I say, because they're so numerous that I couldn't select merely one to share with you. I jokingly said to my team the other day, you know, out of the 20-something years of pastoral ministry, and I figured that up by the number of weekends that would have been and the number of Mondays that would have been associated with that. And I said, you know, it was somewhere I rattled off a number somewhere in the 90 percentile of those weeks that on Monday I had written a resignation letter, at least in my mind, just because I didn't know if I could keep it going. So it's so common. It's you know, any role that you're in, ministry role, personal challenges, leadership roles especially, you know, there are going to be times that we face rejection after rejection. There's going to be times that it feels like every effort is falling flat. There are even going to be times that we wonder, what in the world are we doing? The thing that we're doing for? What was the passion? What was the first love that made us start on this journey to begin with? And I just want to remind you today that if you're feeling that in any sense, if you're questioning in any way that, you know, the purpose of your life, or why are you continuing to do the thing that you once felt so passionately about? Why is that falling flat? I just want to encourage you today and say that you are not alone. You're in very good company, because everyone has felt like quitting at some point. Everyone has faced situations, circumstances, challenges that it just makes us throw our hands up in the air and say, that's it. This is where it ends. This is the straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back. It can't go any further than this, and I'm not willing to try to move beyond what is. But I want to remind you, and I'm going to remind you of several scriptures that are very familiar to you in the course of today's podcast. But I want to remind you of the verse from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, where Paul says to the church, "Let us not grow weary in well-doing, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up." And I want to encourage you with that at the onset of today's episode, that you're doing a good thing. You're doing, and you're even doing a good job. And it may be that you're doing a better job even than your results would indicate right now in the moment. But you're just in a season of trial and testing. And I just want to encourage you to keep the faith And let's just talk for a few minutes. What is it really that causes us to feel like giving up? Why do people really feel like giving up? Is it burnout? Is it unmet expectations? Is it fear? Is it discouragement? Ultimately, these things can lead us to a common conclusion oftentimes, and that common conclusion is that because my efforts seem like they're falling flat, because I'm facing these situations that are bringing discouragement, so much so that I feel like giving up. Maybe we reach the conclusion from all of that we're just on the wrong path. And, sometimes we may be on the wrong path, but oftentimes I've found it's just that the journey is harder than we expected. And it's certainly oftentimes that the journey is longer than we had anticipated it being. And I just want to encourage you today to lean into God's strength during these times. Not always immediately be looking for the out or the escape hatch, as it were. But I want to remind you again, very familiar passage of Scripture, to say from Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. This is a key here, and I don't know where you are in your faith perspective and what your source is for that, but mine is the Bible, and I believe this word in Philippians 4:13 that says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." One of the most important rules of any Bible study, however, is context. That we not only know what a particular verse says, but that we know what the verses before it say, what the verses after it say. And while this particular verse is often wrested from its context to say something that's very motivating and very encouraging towards us, when we read it in the whole scope of what that passage says, it's not always really that enticing, because the Apostle Paul is the one who penned this under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and he talks about some pretty hard times in there. It's not always achievement and accolades and moving things forward. Sometimes it's beatings and stonings and hardships and things that he faces, and it's those things where he says, the grace of God is going to be sufficient for me, and I can do all these things through Christ who strengthens me. And, I would add to that today and just say, listen, God never promised an easy road. I wish. I've often said that for years as a pastor, a spokesperson for the church, is to say, listen, I wish we could offer you a life of ease from this point forward, but we can't. It just wouldn't be honest of us. I want to be very clear that life is not going to simply cease to be lifelike because you come to faith. It's going to be very real. But even in that, we have a real source and a real strength. And God didn't promise us an easy road, but He did promise to us the strength to carry us through. It's the Bible history is replete with so many examples, and I think about things. As I said, I'm a Christian church pastor, so I have a lot of references from stories in the Scripture, and I think about the story like Joseph in the Old Testament, who faced betrayal, who faced imprisonment, who faced years and years of waiting before being able to step into his destiny. And even when his circumstances seemed hopeless, Joseph didn't give up. He didn't lose faith. He didn't lose heart. He didn't lose trust that, he was in those seasons for a reason. Even the suffering seasons, even the hard seasons, even the seasons that were difficult to understand, and seasons when it didn't seem like anything much was happening. There wasn't much movement in his life. There wasn't much progression towards his goal. He just stayed with it, and he stayed faithful. And in the end, God used Joseph to save an entire nation. And I want to encourage you today that maybe the truth of the matter is, and I find this in my own life, I need to listen to a podcast myself where somebody encourages me to like sleep right and get the appropriate amount of rest for my body and for my mind. And, I want to encourage you to rest in the Lord and find strength in prayer and prioritize rest. When Elijah, the Old Testament prophet, faced difficult circumstances in his life and was ready to give up. As a matter of fact, he called out to God and said, "This is enough. What I really would like for you to do is take me now, because this is just too much. I can't bear this anymore. Nothing's working out the way I thought it would or it should at this point in my life. Just take me. It's okay. Besides all that, I'm the only one that's left. There's nobody to encourage me or partner with me or collaborate with me. Just take me now, Lord. It's okay." And when Elijah came to God with this solution, and this is so practical for you and I, God's solution for Elijah wasn't this super miraculous thing. God's solution that he offered to Elijah for this demoralized feeling in his life was simple: eat, rest, and spend time in his presence. That just seems so simple. It seems so intuitive. It seems so, shall I say, natural, that something so natural would be so spiritual. But it is, and it's a reality of life. We live in a society that really, at least in years past, in certain circles even today, just really applaud the grind and applaud the hustle. But there's something to be said for taking a break and just resting in the presence of the Lord, and resting physically, resting your physical man. And, just being very practical in that approach. Listen, the next thing is that sometimes the goal, just the overarching, the 30,000 foot view, just seems so daunting and such an obstacle that it just seems impossible. I want to encourage you to focus on one step at a time, just one step at a time. And sadly, we all focus on one step at a time, and usually it's that final step that culminates in the realizing of our dreams, the accomplishment of our goals. And I just want to encourage you, that step will come, and you can fantasize about that, but focus on the next step in front of you, the very next step. Listen, you don't have to have the whole pathway figured out, because I know that from where you are right now to where you've dreamt of being and where you feel like God is wanting you to be may just absolutely be, seem like the furthest two ends in the world, and you just can't see a clear path. And maybe when you can't see a clear path, the best thing to do is just see the clear next step as you discern it and have understood from the situations around you. Listen, small, consistent actions lead to big breakthroughs. I wish I could remember who said it, who coined the phrase, but somebody once said that it's not the things that you do occasionally that get you where you want to go. It's the things you do consistently. And I've seen that in my own life. I've realized that so many times, that it's not the big occasional things that get me to where I want to go. It's the small consistencies of showing up day after day and continuing to move forward. Listen, if you feel like giving up, I want to encourage you that there's also power in community. I just want to encourage you to lean on others around you for support. I'm not telling you to go out and find people that commiserate with you, that just want to sing a sad song with you all the time. But I am telling you to be careful to find solid and trusted people that will speak into your life, that will encourage you, that will compel you and move you forward. You're listening to this podcast today. I trust that that's because you have found it to be a source in your life where somebody at least with some degree of consistency, is speaking things into your life, into your mind, into your heart, into your soul that are compelling you forward. And I just trust that that is the level of community that you're finding here. But here can't be all there is, because this is somewhat of a one-sided conversation. You need somebody that you're able to express your thoughts and feelings to, and just share with them your particular struggles and what you're going through. And listen, Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Find people who will encourage you when you are weak. Third, I want to give you another action step here, and that is to a very practical tip here. I want you to write down your why. When you feel like giving up, I want you to write down your why. I want you to remind yourself of the purpose, the burden that stirred in your spirit, that got you moving in the direction that you're moving in right now, and write it down. Even today, even if you're on a mountaintop today, if you are having the best season of your life, please write down your why. Please write down the single largest motivator that got you started on this journey. Because there's going to come some time when circumstantial things around you are going to testify against the what you're doing. It's the what that you're doing isn't going to make a lot of sense. But if you're able to revisit the why will carry you through a lot of hard times. And just remind yourself of that. Write it down. Remind yourself of that purpose and that burden and why you started on this journey, and revisit that when the going gets tough, and just say, you know what? It wasn't the applause of people that I started this for. It wasn't the accolades that my ego so hungers for. It wasn't all the good jobs, the attaboys. It wasn't even the money necessarily that got me started on this, but it was a passion. It was a desire to help other people. It was a desire to better the marketplace. It was a desire for whatever. I mean, you fill in the blanks with what that is, but revisit it when the going gets tough and see, is that not enough to overwhelm and overtake some of the discouragement that's coming against your life, your work, your career, your ministry, your goal, whatever it is. You think about that and reflect on that why, and see if that won't make you help you get through. Listen, quitting may seem easier, but the reward of perseverance is far, far greater. And I want you to remember that God is with you every step of the way. When you feel like you can't go on, lean on His strength. Take one step at a time. Surround yourself with people who will lift you up. And if today's episode has encouraged you, I'd love for you to share it with someone else who needs to hear this message. And don't forget that you can book me for your next event or leadership training at SteveEvans.online. And let's stay connected on social media. You can find me at Pastor Steve Evans. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more video content like this. And I want to say thank you for tuning in. Keep pressing forward, and never forget, God has a purpose for your life. Stay motivated, and I'll see you next time on Motivating Moments.